Hello Svenn-gers, it's me, Svenny McG, and I'm here today with a quick video just to ask the question, am I normal? The question itself actually came up recently at one of the retro video game nights that I was hosting. Surprisingly, the question was framed in and around that way, if I felt I was normal having grown up with video games. This was a parent's concern. And again, right off the bat, let's address this here. This is not to poke fun at anyone or any of the inquiries here. The question was done clearly with the intent for the best interest of growing up for children, for everyone. I'm a father myself. I understand that. I took the response to heart and tried to answer it thusly. So let's check it out. Am I normal? Well, I mean, what can I say? Just looking around this very room, this isn't a standard room. This isn't something that most people have in their homes, but it's something that I've come to grow with. I have 3 long boxes of comic books still. I've got all these displays here. You can see a lot of Batmobiles over here. Like I said, since I've been a kid, I was collecting a lot of things. I had key collections, finding loose keys, discarded keys, finding them on the streets, coin collections, both international coins, old historical coins, variants of things I found collecting. And then growing up, I wanted to start to recapture some of the things that I used to have. Mainly, I started getting into the action figures here. And eventually, I started getting into video games again. The video games were twofold. Part of the passion was to play them, and the others was starting to actually just find a couple games, going out to yard sales, etc., some shows. Essentially, it was just getting some cool, rare games and being able to hold on to them, play them, and trade them away. So you have a couple games. What's the major concern? As early as last year, in 2018, the World Health Organization actually identified a gaming disorder. Now, the disorder can basically be summarized as when gaming takes precedence over other activities, family, social, educational, or occupational areas. So, again, once something takes over, it's an addiction. It changes your life. Does that happen to everybody? No. And even the World Health Organization will admit to that it is a small percentile of people that this will actually impact. However, it can become an addiction. Every couple of years as well, it seems that gaming is under a watchful eye of government or otherwise. In fact, the current US administration decided to review games again for their violent content and determine if there was actually any issues here that might be stemming forms of mass violence. So that said, did I grow up normal? Well, again, that's up to interpretation. But what I can tell you is most of my video game memories actually revolve around spending times with friends, sitting down, taking turns, playing levels, getting through a map, renting video games on weekends, trying something new, and ultimately that camaraderie or that rival bittersweet victory by playing with friends. I did have a very balanced life growing up. I played a lot of sports outside. I joined in other sports teams. I played a lot of soccer. I was part of track and field. Later on, played high school football. I was part of the school band. So again, a lot of balance there. But video games always did remain in the background. Now, in my later years of high school, I ended up doing more PC gaming. At the time, we were actually using dial-up and playing online against each other. Games like Warcraft, Diablo, even StarCraft, which I'm terrible at. Don't ask me to play it. But overall, again, always playing with someone, even if I was at home. It was still playing online against others. I played a little bit in Nintendo 64, a little bit of the PlayStation 2, and that generation was all coming out as I was going off to university. And ultimately I kind of skipped over that generation. So I got next back into video games when I purchased a Nintendo Wii in 2006. From there, that kind of re-stemmed my passion for video games. I played a lot of the GameCube backlog and eventually found a cheap Xbox, cheap PlayStation 2, and everything just continued to spiral into the probably 40, 50 consoles that I have now. Now again, I was asked this question out of concern for her child. Uh, this woman's child was there playing video games, having a good time, socializing with everyone, but a generalized question was, what do you think about gaming? You obviously have a lot of games. You've been at this for a while. You're hosting these retro video game nights here in the community. What do you think about games? And as a whole, I said, it's, for one, it's a great conduit for getting together. I'm using my personal collection, the TVs I've managed to get my hands on. Everything's my own equipment, my own controllers, my own consoles, everything I bring in by myself. I set it up using the help of the library and take it all down myself, pack it all up and bring it on home in a variety of boxes. And again, all of that is my driving passion to get something started in the community, because not everyone plays sports. Not everyone has their thing to go to. Not everyone joins boys and girls clubs, cadets, any of these other institutions. There needs to be something else to do, plain and simple. And that's what I'm trying to do here. If we're gonna continue to have comic conventions, other friends are running anime cons, manga, etc. We need other outlets here. So again, that's what I'm trying to do here, is build a little community. In fact, this last night I had was fantastic. I had a lot of brand new faces. I had a couple older gentlemen come in, older being my age, coming in and reminiscing about playing some of the old classic consoles, playing TurboGrafx, playing Bonk, bringing in some Atari, bringing in one gentleman brought in some VIC-20 stuff for us to sit and discuss and look at. Again, it's bringing people together. It's getting back to that, not the seediness of an arcade, not all the stereotypes, I will really push on that, of the arcade, but bringing people together, getting out of the house, getting off the couch, getting outside, ultimately to play games again, but to ultimately do it together. And that's something that's really being lost. Nintendo usually tries to push, but ultimately it's being kind of being lost with a lot of the online gameplay that's going on today. Now, that is to say there's nothing wrong with the online gameplay. It can be a fantastic experience, but with a lot of that, you're getting a lot of online gameplay with specifics like first-person shooters, etc. So if you have a young child and you want to ask me, what do I think about video games? I'm going to tell you that they have a rating the same way movies do. There is the ESRB, the Electronic Software Ratings Board, that was put into place years ago in order to try and combat some of this stuff, so that we're not overly or excessively exposing our children to content that they shouldn't have. I have children myself. It is up to me to restrict what they play. And again, there are safeguards on these things. Most of your children, as I posited to this parent, probably do watch a lot of YouTube videos. Nothing wrong with watching YouTube videos, but a lot of them probably do. Do you know what they're watching? Because anyone can post anything on YouTube, and YouTube's doing its best, Google's doing its best to try and safeguard this stuff. You can flag it for restrictions, etc., but ultimately it can get posted, it can get online, and somebody's gonna get exposed to something that maybe they shouldn't, because it's not built and designed the way TV is. So are you paying attention? Are you watching it? You sure you can't be there all the time, but do you do spot checks? Do you have them log in with any form of a history? Log in under a profile. Let them watch their shows. Do you go and look at the history afterwards to see what it is they've been watching? All that stuff's available to you. So again, it's not that it's not a good form of media. Video games are a great form of media. You have all these options available to you. The Nintendo Switch, I know, for example, has a parental control. You can clearly put on restrictions, as you can every console, but Nintendo has an app that will show you all the games played over the last month, how much time, etc. Is that something you want to keep an eye on? I would think so, especially if you have concerns as to if video games have any issues. we're not going to get politically charged here with anything. But again, video games come under scrutiny every time there seems to be any sort of mass hysteria, mass violence, anything like that. Again, being looked at by the current administration, things like that. We're not going to get into any politics here, but Japan, where Nintendo, Sony, Sega, NEC making the TurboGrafx, all these companies are all stemming from Japan, and they don't have the records of violence that happens to our neighbors south of us. Canada gets all the same video games the United States gets. We don't seem to have the same issues. Why that's the issue, that's up to you to determine. But again, we can safely look at it and by evaluation conclude it's not coming from video games. So what about the phenomenon just like kids watching YouTube, watching this video games all the time? Is that healthy? Should we be sitting and watching video games when we're not playing the games? Do you still play football? Are you actually doing a kitchen renovation right now after you go and watch Chip and Joanna on HGTV? Are you in the business of buying a house while you're watching all that HGTV right now? Again, there's nothing wrong with children watching video games. And of course with children, it's always about finding a sense of belonging. So if your child really, really likes Fortnite, is it such a bad thing that they go on because everyone else's child is sitting and playing Fortnite right now? Don't harbor a sheep, but at the same time, it's okay if your child wants to talk Minecraft, wants to talk Fortnite. If you don't understand it, that's fine, but don't discourage that. If everyone else is enjoying it, it's pretty harmless fun. But again, not all games are built like first-person shooter games. You have a lot of edutainment. You have games like Alphabet Zoo, Fraction Fever, Kids on Keys. There are various types of games out there that your children can be playing. Now, don't be so boring. Let them have a little fun and experiment out there. But the grand scheme of things is video games are art. And in fact, they're in a very fine form of art because they allow you to express yourself through the game and interact with it. And then through that, you can actually evoke feeling from your interaction with the games. So there are a lot of beautiful games out there. Some of them like visual novels where you're kind of brought around on the ride, but you get to go through it at your own pace. Some very unique game. Play Journey. Sit down and have your child play Journey and watch that one. You'll be mind blown. Just beautiful existences out there. So I encourage you to check it out. Also, another thing to consider, as I told the parent, video games, they're not going anywhere. Since basically they started to boom in the 70s with the Odyssey and the Ataris, there was the video game crash in 83, and then Nintendo came out, and we haven't stopped since. Things have just continued to boom. So that's what I was saying to the parent. From the kids' probable Nintendo at home to the Candy Crush probably on the phone, being held by the parent, video games are not going anywhere. So you're going to have to adapt to this reality. They are going to be around. So again, the next time your child's going to go start playing some video games or talking about video games, sit down and listen and hear what they have to say. If they're going to go and play video games, don't let them just close the door to you. Go in there and sit down. Take an interest. You don't have to sit there and spend all your time there. I get that. You're busy. You're a parent. But see what it is they're playing. Find out who it is they're talking to online. Restrict some of that access if you have to. But ultimately, it's up to you to safeguard for your children. It's not going to be at the restriction of the company. They're going to do their best, but it's going to be up to you. You have to do the parenting. But I believe you can do it. Trust me. I've got almost 2,500, 3,000 video games. I'm going to do my best to make sure that all the content my children receive is accurate and appropriate. That said, maybe that's not so normal having that many video games. I'd leave that up to my wife to tell you about. Anyway, this has been a little video on me. Sorry if it's a little bit preachy. Again, I welcome questions like this. I'm always up for gaming and discussion. I really thank everybody for coming to the last video game session, and I hope to see everyone again if we pick it up again in the fall. So in the meantime, take care, be good to each other. Hope to see you again soon. Bye now.